Kia ora, good evening. The Southern District Health Board has released its draft 10-year plan and is asking for feedback. The SDHB's district-wide Strategic Health Services Plan has a major focus on building a collaborative system of care with greater emphasis on bringing care closer to a person's home. The plan suggests spending less on ineffective interventions, upskilling GPs and targeting areas of high spending like community pharmaceuticals. The strategy plan identifies 6 priorities, including developing a coherent southern system of care, building the system on a foundation of primary and community care, ensuring access to sustainable specialist services, strengthening clinical leadership, engagement and quality improvement, optimising system capacity and capability, and living within financial means. The plan's been called vague by some who say it lacks specifics on how strategies will become operational, making it difficult when it comes to consultation.
The public can make. But I think that they should be giving a strong message to the District Health Board that they just simply can't accept something that lacks details, lacks clarity of direction at face value. So they need something more substantive. And I think, secondly, they should be saying that the specialists working in the for the DHB, the medical specialists, and other health professionals, including nurses, should actually be in the engine room of designing how the strategic direction might be fleshed out, not reacting to it. And they're going to have to engage with others. For example, the report talks about general practitioners doing more, but it also reveals that there is a reasonable amount of unmet need in primary care that's not happening. It seems the main reason, according to the report, the plan seems to be cost, but there's also the availability of GPs as well. So there's some capacity issues and resourcing issues there. So that if they're going to actually say general practitioners should be doing more, then they actually need to be engaging with the general practitioners, and the GPs need to be at the centre of that and designing, in practical sense, in terms of what makes good clinical sense, how that might work.
The unhealthy finances of the Southern District Health Board continue to plague the region's public health provider with a fiscal deficit of close to $18 million. To combat this, better use of technology is being mooted as a cost-saving option in the draft plan. Telehealth would see more medical advice delivered through telecommunications while saving on costs. Other initiatives already operating include nurse-led clinics in communities and nurse practitioners who are working across the district. They prescribe medicines, order and interpret diagnostic tests and run outpatient clinics.
It's been a long time since doctors gave up control of the thermometer, and they're not seeking to reclaim it. So over time, the boundaries between what a nurse does and what a doctor does evolves, and that's a healthy thing.
Critical of the Southern DHB's financial position is the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists. The DHB has smeared senior and resident doctors by suggesting the hemorrhaging finances of the country's most southern district health board is due to medical staff wages. The Southern DHB claims doctors' wages have increased 41% since 2009, but Ian Powell of the ASMS says that figure is a deliberate distortion of data.
That's completely erroneous, and they're misusing data that's collected for a different purpose. And they try and make that claim by doing comparisons with other DHBs. And so they compare Southern DHB, its expenditure on medical staff of all doctors, both junior and senior doctors, with Waikato and Capital and Coast District. Of all the DHBs in the country, only Southern DHB has 2 base hospitals as large as Dunedin and Invercargill, so far apart. And when you have base hospitals, they require their own critical mass, so that influences the volume of numbers you need to have on site in order to provide a safe service for patients. So they make comparisons between Southern and, on the one hand, and Waikato and Capital Coast on the other, but Waikato and Capital Coast do not have base hospitals anything like. They have just one base hospital, essentially. And so that means that they have a different economy of scale for the number of specialists they would employ and junior doctors. So that's the first point. The second point is that the figures actually aggregate senior doctors and resident doctors or junior doctors and combine them, which makes the use of the data and the way they've done meaningless. And the simple fact of the matter is that it would just require a slight difference in configuration between Southern on the one hand and Capital and Coast and Waikato on the other, between house surgeons, registrars and specialists, to completely change the interpretation of that data.
Figures released by Statistics New Zealand today show agriculture, forestry and fishery workers as having the highest rate of injury claims accepted by ACC in 2013.
Figures show that workers in these industries made 226 claims per 1,000 full-time employees. Other occupations with high rates of work-related injuries include trade workers, elementary occupations and machine operators and assemblers. During the year, the Accident Compensation Corporation approved over 180,000 claims for injuries incurred while working. Statistics New Zealand said age was a factor, with the highest rates of claims coming from workers aged between 15 and 24 and those over the age of 65.
Stay with us after the break. House valuations are in. We see what the city's worth, plus fiscal education at SIT. Welcome back. New Zealanders have more than doubled their internet data use in the past 12 months. A massive 53,000 terabytes of internet traffic was consumed by Kiwis online in the past year. That's a 53% increase. The data usage is equivalent to streaming over 12 million high-definition superhero movies. Almost half of all broadband connections have data caps of 50 gigabyte or more. Just 3 years ago, that was only 4% of users had data caps this large. As far as speed goes, copper connections still dominate the broadband market, with fibre jumping to 46,000 connections, triple what it was last year. Statistics New Zealand says mobile connections rose 16% to 3.7 million. That's a connected mobile for every 4 out of 5 Kiwis. The latest QV valuation reviews in the south show a 1.1% increase in capital value and a 1.9% increase in land value of Invercargill properties since 3 years ago. According to the valuations, Invercargill City's worth $7.56 billion. But while other regions like Auckland and Christchurch have seen rising values driven largely by housing demand, that's not the case in Invercargill. Loan-to-value restrictions continue to have a negative impact on the region's real estate activity, according to one local valuer.
There are fewer transactions, fewer purchases out there. It's just the supply and demand issue. We would have preferred that the Reserve Bank set a threshold of say $300,000 or $400,000, and then that would have excluded the majority of provincial areas and taken care of Christchurch and Auckland. But unfortunately, that wasn't done.
Any surprises in the latest QV results?
Not really. There's reductions obviously in older homes in South Invercargill with potential ongoing maintenance issues, a decrease in demand from investors for those types of properties. So they've been hit. For your typical central suburbs and northern suburbs, things have ticked away, relatively okay. So they've held up relatively well, but we would basically say to the public that you shouldn't be relying on rating valuations for making property decisions, because they are just a mass appraisal. Each property isn't taken on its own merits, so some are too high, some are too low, some are about right. But we wouldn't make any important decisions based on the rating valuation.
What about those older buildings in the CBD that have seen a large drop due to the potential of being earthquake prone?
Yeah, look, that's fair enough that there's going to be major issues once central government implements a policy, which we're expecting to, owners are going to have to identify earthquake-prone buildings within, say, 5 years of new legislation being put into effect, and then they'll have possibly 10 to 15 years to carry out strengthening or demolish the buildings. So for those older buildings, there's a lot of uncertainty there, so there's few people out there that are looking at buying them, so it has negative implications on the value. So it's fair enough that they've decreased, and it's probably appropriate. It's just whether they've possibly even gone hard enough on some of them. We always find that when there's an election, particularly under MMP, it adds uncertainty, so that was leading up to the latest election. We thought with a quick and strong result that it may have had a positive impact. We're yet to see that yet. And there's also issues with the lower forecast payout by Fonterra, so people will be concerned about the economy. I think people are still concerned a bit about TY and possibly interest rates, although if people look at it on a historical level, interest rates are still pretty attractive.
Students gathered at Southern Institute of Technology today for a free sausage and some invaluable advice. Financial markets expert Andrew Baskin spoke to students to raise awareness around the importance of financial literacy. The Money Management Forum for Students runs in conjunction with Money Week, a nationwide week of events which motivate Kiwis to make the most of their financial situation.
It's a transition time of their lives as they move from being students to thinking about being employees or starting their own business. And at that transition time, often their financial positions change, hopefully for the better as they get more income in the door. But rather than spending all that income, it's a great time to assess how much their current loans are, what their aspirations are, maybe to buy a better car, maybe to buy a home, maybe to invest in a business. At age 20 or 25, that's the time to truly think about your retirement needs. I know it seems like 40 years away, but if you don't start now, at least with a small amount, by the time you're 40, it's almost too late. The key thing at 20 that I would have wished I knew was the real value of compounding. Now that sounds like a strange thing. What do I mean by compounding? It's the fact that when you earn interest on your savings, over a period of time that interest earns interest, and the value of compounding is a hugely important thing. Once again, that means that the earlier I start saving, the earlier I get compounded interest.
Einstein once said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He said he who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. Understanding just what money is and what it does has been made simple by the Reserve Bank.
As part of Money Week, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand has launched a series of short educational animations that explain about what money is and what it does as part of its contribution to Money Week. The video explains how money acts as a reliable means of exchange, a unit of account and a store of value, describing currency as bartering tokens. The Reserve Bank provides the country's notes and coins and works to keep prices stable. It also regulates institutions where people keep their money, like banks and finance companies. The video can be viewed on the Reserve Bank's website, rbnz.govt.nz.
Next up on Sport, we talk to sport journalist Joseph Romanos about his new book, Unforgettable, Defining Moments in New Zealand Sport. From the news team though, it's good night.